The night was quiet, with only the wind moving through the trees near Wolf River Cemetery. Lauren's car sat alone on the side of a deserted road, untouched for hours. But inside, something was very wrong. When police arrived, a man suddenly bolted from the vehicle, disappearing into the dark woods. Officers ran after him, but the thick trees and uneven ground made the chase almost impossible. Meanwhile, Lauren's father, Robert, rushed past them, his heart pounding. His daughter had been missing for days, and now her car was right in front of him. He grabbed the door handle, took a deep breath, and pulled it open. What he found inside would change everything. Lauren Johansson entered the world on October 30th, 2001, in the charming town of Ocean Springs. Known for its breathtaking landscapes, tree-lined avenues, and serene beaches, the town drew in countless visitors. But for Lauren, it was more than just a picturesque getaway. It was the heart of her childhood, a place filled with love, family, and life lessons that shaped her character. Raised by her devoted parents, Robert and Tamala, Lauren grew up in a household brimming with warmth and resilience. Her two older sisters, both born with serious health conditions, required constant care, and from an early age, Lauren embraced a nurturing role. She assisted her parents with daily responsibilities, learning the value of patience and compassion firsthand. This experience molded her into a selfless and empathetic individual, always eager to lend a hand to those in need. Lauren's affection for animals blossomed early on. Fascinated by all creatures, whether domesticated pets or wildlife, she developed a profound connection with them. Her parents encouraged this passion, and as she grew older, she actively sought opportunities to make a difference. By her teenage years, Lauren had become a dedicated volunteer at local animal shelters, not only feeding and caring for animals, but also rehabilitating those that had suffered injuries. Her devotion extended beyond dogs and cats. She nurtured horses, rescued birds, and tended to various wild animals, solidifying her dream of dedicating her life to helping others. Inspired by her innate compassion, Lauren decided to pursue a career in nursing. Her decision aligned seamlessly with her natural inclination to care for people and animals alike. She excelled in her studies at the University of Southern Mississippi, driven by a relentless work ethic and an unwavering desire to make a meaningful impact. Lauren's ultimate goal was ambitious yet deeply personal. She aspired to establish a sanctuary for rescued and rehabilitated animals, a dream she tirelessly worked toward by saving every penny she could. During her senior year of high school, Lauren crossed paths with Bryson Rivers, a charismatic and talented athlete admired by many. Born on February 9, 2000, Bryson was raised in a large, devout household where faith and family were of utmost importance. As the eldest sibling, he bore significant responsibilities, which instilled in him a strong sense of discipline and leadership. His dedication to academics and athletics, particularly in football and track, earned him the admiration of both peers and teachers. At first glance, Lauren and Bryson's relationship seemed ideal. They were both ambitious, driven, and supportive of each other's aspirations. Lauren often spoke about Bryson's thoughtfulness, appreciating the way he made her feel valued and cherished. Likewise, Bryson took pride in Lauren's kindness and determination. However, beneath the surface, a troubling pattern began to emerge. In the beginning, Bryson's attentiveness seemed sweet. He wanted to spend more time with Lauren and asked about her day. But gradually, his affection turned into control. He grew possessive, questioning her interactions with male friends and classmates. His requests to limit her social engagements became demands, masked under the guise of concern for her well-being. Lauren's friends noticed the changes first. She withdrew from social events and avoided conversations about her relationship. When confronted, she defended Bryson, attributing his behavior to stress or his impending military enlistment. Even as his actions became more manipulative, Lauren convinced herself that his jealousy stemmed from love. As the months passed, Bryson's control tightened. He alternated between showing affection and using emotional guilt to justify his actions. If Lauren tried to set boundaries, he turned arguments into moments of reconciliation, convincing her that his actions were for the good of their relationship. Slowly, she adapted to his expectations, unaware of the toxic cycle she had fallen into. Despite growing concerns from her family and friends, Lauren remained steadfast in her belief that Bryson was simply going through a difficult time. She dismissed warnings and rationalized his behavior, clinging to the hope that things would improve. But the situation took a darker turn when his temper escalated beyond words. During a heated argument, Bryson's frustration boiled over, revealing a side of him that Lauren had never seen before. In that moment, the illusion of a perfect relationship shattered, leaving her to question the reality she had been defending for so long. Lauren hesitated for a moment, but before she could leave the room, Bryson grabbed her wrist, holding her back. It was the first time he had physically restrained her, and though the moment was brief, it left an imprint in her mind. Later, when recounting the incident to her friends, she downplayed it, explaining that Bryson had been upset and hadn't meant to hurt her. Her friends, however, noticed a shift in her demeanor. Lauren, once open and expressive, became reserved when discussing her relationship. She brushed off concerns, even as Bryson's criticisms of her became more frequent. He made her feel responsible for their arguments, convincing her that her actions triggered his reactions. Her closest friends urged her to see the pattern, but Lauren defended him, insisting that they were simply going through a rough patch. Subtle but alarming behaviors started surfacing in public. Bryson would cut her off mid-conversation or make sharp remarks when he thought she was getting too much attention. One evening, while out with friends, Lauren simply thanked a waiter for good service. Bryson's mood darkened instantly. The rest of the night, he made passive-aggressive comments, making sure she knew he disapproved. Even Lauren's father, Robert, sensed something was wrong. Though he had never seen Bryson openly aggressive, his instincts told him otherwise. He attempted to talk to Lauren, but she dismissed his concerns, insisting he was being overprotective. With time, she withdrew even further. When friends or family brought up Bryson, she either changed the subject or defended his behavior, convinced that stress or exhaustion explained his actions. She believed it was her responsibility to keep things calm, unknowingly falling deeper into emotional dependence. By December 2023, Lauren and Bryson had planned a trip to Nashville. He was on military leave, and she was on winter break from college. To Lauren, it was a chance to escape her daily routine. To Bryson, it was an opportunity to reinforce his control under the guise of a romantic getaway. The trip started smoothly. They explored the city, visited popular landmarks, and dined at well-reviewed restaurants. Bryson seemed at ease, but beneath the surface, tension lingered. Lauren ignored the signs, hoping for the best. On December 11th, they went to a bar to watch a football game that Bryson refused to miss. The night was uneventful until Lauren excused herself to use the restroom. She asked a waiter for directions and followed his guidance. Moments later, the same waiter passed through the hallway by coincidence, an innocent encounter that ignited Bryson's suspicion. When Lauren returned, she immediately noticed his shift in mood. His expression was rigid, his voice sharp as he accused her of flirting. His jealousy escalated into outright hostility, his words growing louder, his accusations more absurd. Witnesses recalled Lauren trying to calm him, but Bryson wouldn't let it go. They left the bar soon after, heading to their parked car. Once inside, Bryson locked the doors, took her phone, and prevented her from leaving. His anger erupted. He shouted accusations, his rage giving way to violence. The first strike came without warning, followed by another. Lauren fought back, banging on the windows, honking the horn, anything to attract attention. But the streets were empty. Bryson started the car, driving aimlessly through dark roads as he continued his assault. His threats were chilling. He told her no one would find her if he decided to leave her in the woods. When he finally stopped in an isolated parking lot, the nightmare continued. Lauren, desperate to defend herself, reached for the handgun she carried in her bag. Bryson was quicker. He ripped the bag from her grasp before she could retrieve it. For nearly an hour, the violence persisted. He struck her repeatedly, his words laced with terrifying detachment. At one point, audio from Lauren's phone, accidentally recording, captured his eerie remark about how her swollen face now resembled a bowling ball. Help came from an unexpected source. During the assault, Bryson called his mother. Lauren, barely able to speak, screamed for help in the background. Alarmed, his mother contacted the police despite not knowing their exact location. Meanwhile, Robert, Lauren's father, used a family tracking app to pinpoint her whereabouts. When officers arrived, they heard Lauren's cries from inside the car. They forced the door open and found her battered and trembling. Bryson was arrested on the spot, while Lauren was rushed to the hospital. Her injuries were severe. Bruises, swelling, and signs of prolonged trauma left the medical team shaken. Despite it all, Lauren refused to press charges. She insisted she didn't want to ruin Bryson's life or his military career. Even from jail, he found ways to reach her, exploiting loopholes to make phone calls. Each time, he repeated the same script: apologies, promises, declarations of change. And despite everything, part of her wanted to believe him. Under mounting pressure from Bryson, Lauren reluctantly agreed to revise her original statements, an action that would ultimately alter the course of the case. Following his arrest, Bryson remained in custody as he awaited trial on assault charges. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, including audio recordings and Lauren's testimony, the court granted him the possibility of bail. Initially set at $250,000, the amount kept him behind bars temporarily as legal proceedings moved forward. 6 months later, Bryson's legal team petitioned for a bail reduction. The judge approved the request, lowering it to $150,000, a decision that shocked Lauren's family, who feared that his release would put her in even greater danger. Despite their concerns, Bryson's mother quickly posted the bail, securing his release while he awaited trial. As part of his release conditions, Bryson was required to wear a GPS-enabled ankle monitor, restricting his movements and prohibiting him from approaching or contacting Lauren in any way. However, administrative failures led to critical mistakes in enforcing these restrictions. The officer responsible for escorting Bryson to the monitoring center had not been fully briefed on the specifics of the case. As a result, when the monitor was set up, key restrictions, such as the prohibition on leaving the city, were never properly activated. This failure stemmed from poor coordination between departments. The court documents outlining Bryson's release terms were not submitted to the monitoring center in time, leaving staff to rely on his own account of the conditions. Taking advantage of the oversight, Bryson provided false information, conveniently omitting the restrictions related to his location and contact with Lauren. Just days after his release, another issue arose, one that would prove disastrous. The battery on Bryson's ankle monitor started running low. He received multiple notifications to recharge the device, but ignored them. Eventually, the monitor lost power completely, rendering it useless. Authorities were alerted to the malfunction, but failed to take immediate action. Instead of treating it as an urgent matter, they allowed crucial hours and then days to pass without intervening. Lauren's family was left in the dark about the situation until it was far too late. Her father, Robert, received a voicemail from law enforcement, casually informing him that Bryson's ankle monitor had stopped working and his whereabouts were unknown. Stunned by the lack of urgency, Robert immediately contacted the police, demanding swift action. He also took matters into his own hands, inspecting Lauren's car's GPS system for any signs that might indicate where Bryson had gone. Despite his relentless efforts to push for stronger measures, law enforcement remained slow to respond. Days passed without any sign of Bryson, and with each hour, the risk to Lauren increased. On July 2nd, officials finally confirmed what Robert had feared all along. Bryson had violated the terms of his release and had vanished. By then, his phone was turned off, and his location remained a mystery. A warrant for his arrest was issued, but it was too little, too late. The situation took a horrifying turn when Lauren suddenly went missing. That day, Robert attempted to call her, but his calls went unanswered. Soon after, he received a text from her phone that immediately set off alarm bells. It didn't sound like something Lauren would have written. Alarmed, he reached out to his other daughter, who shared an apartment with Lauren, and asked her to check on her. When Lauren's sister woke up, she made a chilling discovery. The front door of their apartment was wide open, the security cameras had been disabled, and Lauren's car was gone. She immediately called Robert, who wasted no time in reporting Lauren missing. Despite the mounting evidence and the family's desperate pleas, law enforcement was slow to react. Over 24 hours passed before authorities finally agreed to track Lauren's car, a delay that would mark yet another catastrophic failure in the handling of Bryson's case. On July 3, 2024, police finally tracked Lauren's car using its GPS signal. It was found parked in a secluded area near Wolf River Cemetery, just outside of town. The location was notorious for its remoteness, surrounded by thick woods and far from any heavily trafficked roads. The grim discovery set off an immediate response from both law enforcement and Lauren's father, Robert, who arrived at the scene shortly after officers. As police approached the car, a figure suddenly bolted from the vehicle and sprinted into the dense tree line. It was Bryson Rivers. Officers gave chase, but the thick underbrush made pursuit difficult, and he quickly vanished into the forest. Robert, consumed by fear, rushed to the vehicle, desperately hoping to find his daughter alive. But when he pulled open the door, the horror that awaited him was beyond anything he had ever seen. Lauren's body lay on the back seat, wrapped in a sheet and black plastic bags. The injuries to her face and head were so severe that she was almost unrecognizable. Robert, a medical professional accustomed to seeing trauma, later admitted that nothing in his career could have prepared him for that moment. As law enforcement documented the scene, evidence inside the car painted a brutal picture. Bloodstains on the upholstery indicated Lauren had suffered a prolonged violent attack before her death. Despite his own anguish, Robert remained at the scene, refusing to leave until the investigation was completed, even as his own health began to deteriorate from the emotional toll. The search for Bryson carried on for several hours. Helicopters equipped with thermal imaging combed the area, eventually detecting his heat signature deep in the woods. Officers surrounded his location, closing in from all sides. 9 hours after the manhunt began, Bryson was finally apprehended. He surrendered without resistance, his demeanor eerily calm. During interrogation, Bryson offered his version of events. He admitted that on the morning of Lauren's disappearance, he had gone to her home, aware that she would be alone that day. Days of unanswered calls had fueled his anger and paranoia. Unable to accept that Lauren was trying to sever ties, he waited for her to leave the house and confronted her outside. Bryson claimed he only wanted to talk, but when Lauren refused and attempted to walk away, he grabbed her and forced her into her car. Despite her attempts to resist, he locked the doors and started driving. He took her to a remote area outside the city, convinced that they needed privacy to have an honest conversation. But the discussion quickly escalated into a heated argument. Lauren, refusing to be manipulated, demanded he let her go. When she threatened to call the police, his anger spiraled. He began yelling accusations, blaming her for everything that had gone wrong between them. When she tried to escape by opening the door, he shoved her back inside. That moment marked a deadly turning point. Bryson admitted that he struck her, once, then again, and again, until he lost control. He claimed he hadn't meant for things to go that far, that he was only trying to calm her down, but he kept hitting her until she stopped moving. Realizing Lauren was unconscious and no longer responding, he attempted to revive her. When it became clear she wasn't breathing, he made the calculated decision to dispose of her body. He retrieved a blanket from the trunk, wrapped her in it, and placed her in the back seat before driving to the secluded area near Wolf River Cemetery. He left the car there, intending to return later to get rid of any evidence. However, before he could execute his plan, police discovered the vehicle. Lauren's death and Bryson's subsequent arrest sparked public outrage. The media not only covered the horrific crime, but also exposed the glaring failures within the justice system, failures that had allowed Bryson to slip through the cracks despite clear warning signs. Lauren's family, despite their immense grief, issued a statement calling for systemic reforms to prevent similar tragedies. They demanded accountability for the missteps that had led to their daughter's murder. Meanwhile, Bryson's mother, who had paid his bail, came under intense scrutiny. Many questioned whether she had fully understood the potential consequences of her actions. Though public opinion condemned her decision, Lauren's family refrained from placing direct blame on her, instead focusing on the broader systemic failures that had allowed Bryson to remain a threat. Lauren's funeral was attended by family, friends, and residents of Ocean Springs who had been deeply moved by her story. She was remembered as a kind-hearted young woman, deeply passionate about helping others. In her honor, her family established a foundation dedicated to supporting animal welfare, one of Lauren's greatest loves. Bryson Rivers' trial began in December 2024. He faced charges of kidnapping, first-degree murder, and evidence tampering. As proceedings continued, one question loomed over the case. How had the justice system failed so catastrophically? Despite the overwhelming evidence, witness testimonies, physical proof, and even audio recordings of his previous attack, Bryson had been allowed to walk free after his initial arrest. That decision had ultimately sealed Lauren's fate. The case against Bryson Rivers is far from over. While he now sits behind bars, the trial is still ongoing, and the final verdict has yet to be decided. How long he will remain in prison, or if justice will truly be served, remains unknown. For Lauren's family, the fight isn't just about one case. It's about making sure no one else has to suffer the same fate.